Chapter 5. Things Get Real. When I got a chance later to sit down privately with my Uncle G, I asked him about my father. I went down to the study and sat across from him at his desk. He was buried in that Bible again. He said, "What's up, CJ?" "I wanted to talk to you about my dad." He looked up at me, took his glasses off, and sat back in his big leather chair. "Well, I was waiting for you to ask me about him." I didn't know where to start, so I just rambled off everything I was thinking. What was he like? Did he love me? Did he talk about me? Why did he get locked up anyway? He took a deep breath. "Well, he definitely loved you. Every time I talked to him, he had so many plans for you." "What type of plans?" "Well, he wanted to make enough money to move out here with you and send you to a good school." "What about the organization? He couldn't just leave, right?" My Uncle G leaned over and folded his hands on the desk. "Well, CJ, that's the complicated part. At your age, I wouldn't expect you to understand. But there's a passage in this Bible that explains it better than I can." He turned to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11, and read it. "When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me." He closed the Bible. You see, CJ, how and where we started off in life, we had no choice. The environment you grew up in was given to you. The choices you made as a child will follow you, but the decisions you make now as a man will define you. The older you get, the more the world of choices and decisions open up to you. Your excuses for who you are and what you are doing are fewer. The organization was also a huge part of my life growing up. All I wanted to be was a gangster. I wanted to rise up in rank and take the organization as far as I could. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I sat up in the chair. "Wait, you were part of the organization?" He gave me a look, like he didn't know why I had a hard time believing him. He said, "I believe I was the reason your father joined. I got plugged into the organization a little younger than you are right now, right after my father was killed. And the only way your dad could keep an eye on me was to join also." I looked at him with confusion. How could this guy sitting across from me have been part of the organization? He looked so normal, so square. He went on to tell me some stories of how he and my dad had gotten into trouble behind the organization. He said he started off in security and rose up in ranks quickly. I couldn't see it in him, though. There was no way this man in front of me could have ever done some of the things he's talking about. He knew all the organization literature word for word. He must have seen the disbelief and confusion in my face because he stood up and unbuttoned his shirt. And there it was, our two organization symbols tattooed on his chest. Faded, but still visible. "The same ones I have on my chest?" I asked. "If you left the organization, then why did you keep those tattoos?" "I love the organization. I never left. It will always be part of me. I've just taken it and built on it as my own organization. I'm a man now. I have choices. I still live by our creeds: love, loyalty, unity, knowledge, and life." You're also at that point, CJ. You've been given choices. I know you're loyal to the organization. I know you grew up rough and survived the best way you knew how. But you have more knowledge now. CJ, I want you to do something for me. Close your eyes. Now imagine you're standing in a room full of people. Look around and count all the red shirts you see. Now, open your eyes. How many people were wearing blue shirts? What? I sat there for a minute trying to figure out what he was talking about. "What do you mean? You told me to count the red shirts." He sat back in his chair and folded his arms. Perception. Before you were given all the information you have now, the things you have seen, read, and heard, your view was limited and skewed. All you were focused on were red shirts in the room, where there are so many more options in the room. It's what you focus on that gives you your perception. All these options that you are seeing now have always been there, but you were raised and trained to just focus on one. Now, your view is greater. And CJ, you haven't even left the room yet. It was getting late, and like always, my uncle done threw me for another loop with the whole room and shirt situation. I went upstairs and tried to process it all. This month went by so fast that I forgot to check my phone for a couple of days. I turned the phone on, and my stomach dropped. My throat tightened. I had missed a call. I knew exactly who it was. I set the phone on my chest to think for a minute. Just a couple of weeks ago, I couldn't wait to get this call. Either way it went. To come home or to keep running. Of course I wanted to go back to Chicago. Well, at least I thought I did. I'll sleep on it and call back in the morning. The next morning felt like it came as soon as I shut my eyes because I stayed up thinking most of the night. What would my Uncle G do in this situation? And what would my dad want me to do? For the first time in my life, I felt I really had control of my future. The biggest part of going back would be for my homies. What would they think about me if I abandoned them? On the other hand, I have my Uncle G and the plan my dad always wanted for me. But what would I do here? I already dropped out of school. I can't make any real money here. My uncle's world is foreign to me. Then I started thinking, was I scared? Was I scared of the suburbs? How could I fear this place when I've survived Chirac all these years? I'm tripping. I made the call around 8 a.m. Chicago time, and I wasn't prepared for the conversation that took place next. KD picked up on the other end. I said, "Sir?"
Good news, CJ. Everything is taken care of. There's just one thing.
"What's that?" Something was telling me I didn't want to hear what was coming next.
You've been promoted to assistant governor.
An awkward pause lingered between us. If the situation wasn't so severe, I would have asked him if there was a mistake or something. I finally said, "Huh?"
The board had no choice. Someone let the chairman know about your situation, and he gave the order to protect you. So the only option was to promote you up in the organization, putting you on the same level as, well, you know.
He was rushing now. I knew he had to get off the phone. "Wait, before you hang up, did you know my Uncle G?" He laughed.
Did I? I couldn't stand your uncle. Him and your father was nothing alike. Your uncle was a hothead. He was only about the organization. We stayed getting into it with everybody because of your uncle. The best thing that could have happened to him was your dad taking that gun charge, so he could go off to college in California and play basketball.
"What gun charge?"
The summer your uncle was leaving for college and your mom was pregnant with you, we got pulled over by the cops and they found your uncle's gun. We told your hard-headed uncle not to bring it, but he did anyway. Your dad knew if he got arrested he would lose his scholarship, so he told the cops it was his. And that gun just saved your life.
"What do you mean?"
When your dad went to prison down in Vienna, he met the chairman of the organization, and they became closer than brothers. It's only a handful of people the boss man trusted, and your dad was one of them. He's the one that told us to protect you by any means necessary. If your dad didn't know him, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.